So welcome to this Perfect Mask webinar. I'm Bob Campbell from On One Software, and we're going to start by looking at a basic masking process using this picture of the castle at La Rochelle. First of all, I'm going to find a file. I'm inside of Perfect Layers, by the way. I'm using the suite in standalone mode. I'm going to find a file that I can put into the background behind the castle. So let's double click on a sky and let's say add as a layer, and the sky will appear on top of the picture of the castle. Now I'm going to use the transform tool inside of Perfect Layers, and with the shift key selected so we don't distort the clouds too much, I'm going to increase the size of the sky, fit it back just beneath the horizon on those rooftops, just increase the size a little bit more, and there we have it. Now I'll say apply, and with the sky filling the top 2/3 of the image, I'm going to drag the sky back behind the castle. Standard function in Perfect Layers. Now, make sure you select the subject that you want to mask. I'm cutting out the sky, the existing sky behind the castle, so select the castle and take it into Perfect Mask with a single click. Perfect Mask scans the image and segments it. It breaks it into basic color components. Let's look at what it's actually done. Go to the bottom left-hand corner of the workspace where it says All Layers and click, and then select Segments. And what you'll see happen is that the image changes into a kind of painting by numbers. Lots of areas of similar pixels. Very light pixels at the bottom, darker pixels towards the top, especially in the sky. The castle looks great. Okay, right. Now what I'll do is to change that segmentation process, because you can adjust it depending on the complexity of your images. So go to Segments at the top of the workspace and increase it to say 25 or 26. The software analyzes the image again and breaks it into fewer segments. The higher that segmentation setting, the fewer the elements you'll see in the picture. So look, the sky has become a single color. That means if I ask the sky to disappear in some way, it's going to chop the whole sky out in one go. Let's see how that happens. Go back down to where it says Segments and now select All Layers. You can only see the masking process happening in the All Layers view at this stage. A brush has automatically been selected. The second brush down in the tool palette is called the Drop Brush tool. Use that brush now. I'll increase the size of it so you can see it, and I'm just going to drag diagonally across a section of the sky, knowing of course that it's all one color as far as the software is concerned, and the whole sky disappears. Great, I've got a mask. I can immediately see whether the sky is going to work with the image. I think it will, and I can immediately see what the whole context of the picture is now, the whole composition. Okay, but I do have a couple of little problems here. The first is I'm going to check the edge of the castle to see if there's any fringing. And fringing is a real problem with masking sometimes. If there is a lot of fringing on a picture that you've cut out, the chances are it's not going to work as a finished image because it just won't look natural. So, take the refine brush and just move down the edge of the castle to remove any fringing. I'll stop about halfway down and you can see the effect. If I let go, the refine brush takes over and removes any fringing, and actually the edge of the castle I think looks better with that fringing cut off. So I'm going to continue with the process right down the edge of the mask. And now I'm going to use the navigator window to just pull down to reveal the extra... yes, I can see the edge and the fringing quite clearly now when we move further down. The sky's a little bit darker at this point, so I want to make sure that we remove any fringing off those little roofs and areas of the image that just won't look natural when this image is printed. So just take away any little bits of fringing. I'm going to leave the little aerials in. Actually, should I? I don't think I should. I'm going to take those out. Let's remove them so that the picture looks more natural. In fact, I'll use the basic removal brush, which is called a masking brush, the brush 4 brushes down in the tool palette, just to wipe off those little aerials completely. I think there's a satellite dish there as well. Let's take that out. That looks a lot better. Okay, now fit the image back on the screen. If you go over to the navigator window, hit the little fit button, the whole image becomes a kind of 100% in the middle of the workspace. A nice fast way of doing that. Let's take a look at the right side of the image with the magnifying glass now and see if there's any fringing that needs to be removed from there. There is a little bit. So once again, use the refine brush and just refine the edges. Remove any little bits of material that are going to make the image look unnatural. Now if we go right up the right side of the tower and just let the software do its work, it gradually cuts away that fringing. Navigate using the window inside the navigator panel. Let's just go down inside that little castellation. We've removed that little piece as well. There's a little bit of colour hanging around at the top of that castellation. It's just making the image look more natural. At the top of the castellation in the middle of the picture, I'm pretty happy that I can't see any fringing there. There probably is some, but hey, if you can't see it, nor can anybody else. So let's just take away the bits that we can see. That will save us a little bit of work, won't it? Now use that refine brush and see if we can take away the middle of the castellation. There's a little arrow slot, isn't there, or a slot where medieval bowmen would have fired their arrows. See if that disappears. It hasn't, has it? So we need to do something else to make that go. Let's try and reduce the brush size. In fact, I'll zoom in quite a lot further into where the... Oh, we're almost at pixel level now. It looks quite blurred. But take that drop brush, pull it right down in size. I'm using the bracket keys, by the way. For me, the bracket keys work easier to manipulate, and then just click. It should be a single color. So it should be able to make that item disappear. Maybe the brush is just a fraction too small. And just wait for it to do its little job. And it's not really cutting away the sky from the background. So I'm going to use a different technique to do that. Let's just change techniques and select a color to drop. I'm going to tell the software to take out that color. So I'm going to select it. It appears in the drop palette. I've clicked a couple of times to select a couple of different colors. I'm going to use a magic brush now and just draw over the little arrow slot, and it cuts away the sky behind. Let's just take the refine brush and just refine those edges a little bit more to make a better selection. Actually, the refine brush isn't doing what I wanted it to, so I'll just undo that stroke. Let's try this tool, which is called a chisel tool, and just cut away. Okay, perfect. Now the chisel tool is different to the refine brush. It's not affecting any of the tonal value of the stonework on the image, and it's just cutting away a little bit of the extra stonework on the side. Okay? You have a mode at the top of the screen to remove areas of the edge with the fringe or add them back. So if you make any mistakes, as I've done here, just paint the pixels back in using the brush, or in this case, sorry, the chisel. Okay, now refit the image on the screen. That slot looks good. I'm now going to do the same in this other little arrow slot. So with my colors selected, take the brush and just remove the background. Don't forget to check the mode and select paint out. Paint out will remove the background quite nicely. There's obviously some little bits of cloud in there. That's fine. And a tiny little bit of chisel around the top just to make the selection work really well. And just pinch away a couple of those little pixels. Great. Now I'm going to fit the image back on the screen. There's a deliberate mistake almost, isn't there? in a part of the image, and it's where the flagpole is. Let's just zoom in there. I've just noticed something else as well. A little bit of retouching required, probably with the refine brush around that thing that looks like a chimney. I guess it is a chimney. Who knows? Let's try the refine brush on that little arrow slot as well and see if we can remove that automatically. No, not quite done it. So I'm going to revert to the same process of the magic brush, paint out, we have drop colors selected, and let's just see if that does the job. Yes, it does, beautifully. How about the flagpole? What are we going to do there? Well, there's a couple of things we should do. The first thing is to select the fourth brush down in the tool palette called a basic brush. Okay? What this brush does is paint the image out completely. Let's get rid of that flag. Okay? Well, that's a bit mean. I wanted to keep the flag in the shot. Okay, so let's paint the flag back in. At the moment the mode is set to paint out, change it to paint in, or, probably better yet, go to Edit, Undo, to undo the stroke, and the flag comes back into play. Now, using the same brush, select Paint In, and reduce the size of the brush to around about 3 or 4 times the width of the flagpole, and paint down. The flagpole is reappearing, but it's got blue from the sky around it. Well, no big problem there. Let's take the drop brush, make the size a fraction bigger, and just dab in to the side of the flagpole. And it chops away the whole thing, but it's chopped away the flagpole again. So, reduce the segmentation, because we're taking away too much of the sky in one go. Go back to your basic masking brush and just paint back the little bit of flagpole that we lost. So paint it back all the way down. That's great. Just make sure you've got it all. Put it back in place. Now with the segmentation reduced, it means that we'll have a better selection for that sky. So let's go drop again. Click. Drop process is working okay. It's still taking away some of the flagpole. But I have a little trick up my sleeve. And the trick is this. I can see the base of the flagpole now and the top of the flagpole. Let's use our little basic masking brush, still set to paint in, and let's reduce the size to the width of the flagpole. And let's click once, and then let's go to the top of the flagpole, click again, but hit the Shift key to make a perfect selection of the flagpole. So the flagpole comes back into place. We've done quite a little bit of editing in this image already. Just to save me a bit of time, I'm going to go to the top of the flagpole and I'm going to paint out that little bit right at the top. That's a little bit fiddly for me. So I'm going to take the top off the flag. That's fine. Let's go back and fit the image on the screen, and we've got a complete mask with all the castellations sorted out, any fringing cut away, everything looks fine. Now, let's do a more complex mask. First of all, I'm going to say apply. Applying the image back into Perfect Layers or back into your Photoshop or Photoshop Elements will create a layer mask for you automatically that's there to be used if you want to edit the original image, for instance. You've cut a mask, use it if you need it. But what we're going to do instead now is to go to a more complex image, and I'm going to create a composite picture. I'm going to use a picture of an oak tree. I'm going to say edit a copy. Click OK, and a new picture appears on the screen. Notice in Suite 8, by the way, we have tabs for our images, just as an aside. I don't like the blue sky on this tree, so what I'm going to do is to remove the blue sky and replace it with a new sky. We're going to add the new sky as a layer, and say OK. Now, once again, the same process that we had with the castle. Take the sky, pull it underneath the tree so that the tree is on top, and don't forget to select the tree so it's the live layer, the layer that we're going to mask. Now go into Perfect Mask. It performs the same process again. It analyzes the image to make that segmentation process. And I'm just deleting a couple of color sets. Pretend they were never there. Okay? This is what would happen if you open the image for the first time in Perfect Mask. You would have no colors in the color palettes for no more complex selection. Now, let's try that little drop process again. Drop brush tool, just going to increase the size slightly. The sky is very similar already, so the segmentation process should have made this into a single color blue. Let's wipe away that sky with the second brush down in the tool palette. Okay? Now, I need to be able to work on a lot more detail in this picture than you can imagine that there is just looking at the picture as it is. Let's use the magnifying glass and let's zoom in to a part of the image. Okay? Now, I'm not sure that that segmentation process and the drop brush has not cut away some of the detail in the image. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go to Mask and say Reset Mask. Look at the navigator window as I do this. Reset the mask now. The whole mask comes back into view, or rather the whole image comes back into view. It's as though we haven't done anything with the picture at all. I'm not going to use that basic segmentation process because I'm worried whether or not I'm losing some of the detail in the tree. I want to be able to make a perfect mask of this image if I can. Let's give it a go. But to do a really good mask, I'm going to need, and to retain all the detail, I'm really going to need to help the software. And helping the software means selecting colors for the software, not letting it do its little segmentation process. Instead, I'm going to use the two color pickers in the tool palette, and the first one is the Keep Color Eyedropper. I'm going to select a color from that green on that branch. Then I'm going to go for a very deep color, almost black. Then a lighter color from the leaf, and a couple of other colors from the leaves, intermediate colors. I'll maybe go for a darker green, and now go for some of the grays on the horizon line. There's a warmer gray and a cooler gray. So we've got a range of colors selected. Now, go for some drop colors. Remember the color that we selected in the blue of that arrow slot or bow slot on the top of the La Rochelle Tower. I used the drop colors and picked a color there. Let's just select and select and select. Hang on a minute. I'm supposed to be selecting drop colors. These look very similar to the colors of the tree. I'm making a mistake. Let's clear those colors. Just hit that little clear button under the color palette. The drop colors should be blue. So select a few of the blues from behind the tree. Now I think I've probably got the color selections right, but to check for sure, go to this magic brush, increase the size, and start to mask. And what I'm looking for here is no blue fringing around the twigs and the leaves and the branches, and as much detail as possible in the mask. It looks good. Is it as good as it can possibly be? I think it's not bad. But I'm going to try a couple of options by changing some of these tools at the top. I'm thinking that what I've done is okay, but you never know. So I'm just going to go back with a Command Z or Control Z. I'm using a Mac, but if I was using a PC, Control Z. Let's switch that little box off to the right hand side of all the brush controls called Color Decontamination. See what that does. Ugh, I don't like what's happened. Because what's happened is now that we have blue fringing around all those tiny little twigs. So what color decontamination was doing was decontaminating the subject, the tree, the branches, the leaves, of any of the blue in the sky. And that decontamination process was working well. Switch it on again. Go over the same area. Oh, look, the mask is so much better now with decontamination switched on. So clearly I need decontamination. Can I make the mask any better by adjusting some of the sliders along the top of the workspace? The mode is set to paint out. That's fine. I'm painting out the old background. The size is fine. I'm not going to adjust that. The little W controls the size using a Wacom tablet or Wacom tablet. Feather is fine. It just controls the softness of the brush, not the softness of the mask, the softness of the brush. The feather's set to 29. That's probably about where I would have it anyway. But what's all this going on here with transition and threshold? Let's change the transition. Let's move it all the way down to, say, well, 0. And now let's mask. Whoa. That is not good. Now what that transition is giving me is a harder edge to the mask itself. It's so hard it's wiping out some of the very fine detail in the image. So just delete that stroke. Transition I'm going to put up to about halfway, and then threshold I'm going to put up to about 131 seems to be the maximum for threshold. So with the threshold increased, how does the mask work? Well, once again, it looks fine. I can't see too much of a problem. Actually, no. Okay, it seems to be adjusting the tonal values in the image. It seems to be making the colours a little bit harder. That's okay, but I'd prefer the colours to remain as they were. So I'm going to take threshold back down to 0 and push transition all the way up to 255. And mask again. And it's okay. But all this fiddling around with the mask and the way the brush is working with the image is worrying me that I might have lost some detail. So let's just go back to mask, say reset the mask, and carry on with the process, which, to be honest, was perfectly fine the way I had it set up originally. I made some adjustments. I don't think they've made the image look better, but look, I can see so much detail in the picture now. I think I've got a good mask. How good is it though? How does it compare to the original image? To see that, go down to the bottom left-hand corner of the workspace and click on the capital letter A in that little white box or grey box. And when you click on it, it splits the screen in two. Excellent. I've got a before image and an all layers image, an after, if you like. Use the pan tool or the hand tool to just move the image across so we can actually compare parts of the picture. And the part of the picture that I'd like to see reproduced on the right-hand side image is this very faint little twig just above the fingers of the pan tool or hand tool. If I can see that really faint little twig on the right-hand side, and I can, I'm pretty sure the mask is good. I'm happy with that mask. So much so that I'm just going to click back on the little capital letter A 4 times to bring the full image back in the screen. And let's just carry on with the mask and see if the mask is as good as it's beautiful. I think the mask there is really nice. By the way, that little fault, or looks like a little fault at that point on the brush, is actually a barn roof just behind this hedge. It's actually about a quarter of a mile past the hedge, but you can see it looks as though it's just past it. Go back to the navigator window, fit the image on the screen, and then take a look at the mask and carry on with the process. Now, as I move higher into the tree, you'll notice the sky does actually change colour. I think what's happening is that at the base of the sky, on the horizon, we have a bank of cloud, and it's very light yellow. As we move higher, you can see more clouds appearing, and that's great. Now, I'm finding this whole process of masking the image a little bit laborious, and I'm terrified that once I've masked it, I will have to zoom around the whole image, investigating all parts of it to make sure that I've removed all the blue in the picture. But there is an easy way of doing that. Before I do it, I'm just going to add a couple of extra blues to drop with the drop color eyedropper and just run along the top of the picture, selecting some deeper blues, so we have a range of different blues now in the drop palette. If I inadvertently select the wrong color to drop, and I just added a leaf color from the top of the tree, don't panic, you don't have to reselect all your colors. Click on an individual color and say delete. And once it's gone, that's fine. Carry on with the magic brush and make sure that the mask is as good as we can make it. You can see the sky is just changing color a little bit because I've got a bigger range of blues now. So I'll just run over the sky there, but be careful, I'm removing some of the details, so let's not do that. Let's just put the image back there. I'm going to delete a couple of those blues so that we don't have so many selected, and carry on with the mask here and just make sure that it's working okay. Now, the little problem of having to be very careful and mask into every tiny little bit of blue that I was talking about is driving me crazy, and it's hurting the finger on the mouse. I'm using a mouse to make this mask. So let's do this. Let's take our little magic brush, the one we have selected, the one that's doing the really good masking job at the moment, and double click on it. And double clicking the brush, as you'll notice now, there's a little spinning ball in the middle of the screen, tells the software to analyze the whole image and make the mask in the rest of the area that we haven't cut out yet. What that will have done is to analyze the keep and drop colors for me and wipe all the blues out of the picture. Good, unless you've got blues in part of the picture that you want to retain. And there are some in this part of the image that I do want to retain. Now, before we go and investigate that little problem, let's just take a look at the mask in all its glory. Go down to all layers and go to mask grayscale. Look at that, a perfect grayscale representation of the mask. The sky should look black, that's great. The area that we've cut out should be black. And the area that we've retained, the tree and the hedge and the wood in the background, should be a nice white. There are lots of little specks of blue on the trunk of the tree that have been taken out, but I'm not going to worry about all of those. What does worry me are a couple of areas of the image. Top left-hand corner, the sky's starting to go grey. That means that the mask isn't working perfectly in that area. Go to the masking brush where it says paint out and just make that a nice black. Okay. The other area that I really want to fix in this image are these branches and trees from a tree that I couldn't quite get into the shot in the top right hand corner. I'm going to paint that out. Look at it disappearing. This means it's going to save me a lot of time having to retouch these branches out later on as I composite this image. So let's just wipe that branch out. Let's look at the image once again in all layers, and of course those branches have disappeared. The mask is good in the top left hand corner, but I still have a slight problem where we've just removed too much blue. So I'm going to go down here, bottom left hand corner. I can see there's a lot of blue in the grass, but I suspect that the image has gone slightly transparent. So let's go back to that grayscale mode and just look at it in a little more detail. Mask a grayscale. Yeah, look what we've got. Right in the bottom left hand corner there must be a little fence here because I've got some lines on that fence. Also, we've got kind of grey looking grass. Now remember, the mask is black, a partial mask is grey, which means that I've lost some of the blue pixels in that foreground area. I'm not sure what that's going to look like when I try and print this image out, so I'd rather make that plain white. Once again, go to the basic brush and paint out that area. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. Instead of saying paint out, say paint in, and it will paint back any information that you've inadvertently removed from the picture. There's even a few blue pixels around here that I'll probably just retouch back in because I'm not sure they should all have gone. Fit the image back on the screen. The mask looks really good now. I'm going to go from the grayscale mode to all layers, and there's my picture. Let's apply that back into Perfect Layers. In this case, you could apply it back into your Photoshop, depending on how you're working with Perfect Layers and Perfect Mask. You might be putting the image straight back into Lightroom for all I know. Now, how about adding another layer just to finish? Let's do that. Let's go down here and find a picture. It's a picture of my wife, Di. It's called Di Green. Her name isn't Di Green, but the background is green. It's a green screen background. Let's say add as a layer. So we're adding her as another layer into this composition. Great. What we want to do with her is to make her smaller. So I'm inside of Perfect Layers. I'm going to use the transform tool, use the shift click so we keep the proportion correct, and put Di somewhere in the image. I'll probably set her off to the right hand side a little bit just there, and probably make her just a little bit bigger. Don't tell her I said that. And I'll just push her down a little bit so she's not too intrusive. Now this is a completely new layer, and with that layer selected I'll just say apply to the transformation, so she's now set at that size. I could go back to transform and resize her again if I needed to, and now take her as the selected layer into Perfect Mask. Once again, remember the segmentation process is going to happen, but only to the layer of Di. So with that segmentation done, the drop brush automatically selected, let's wipe away the green. It should definitely be a single color green. Excellent. Now I'm going to use the refine brush. Color decontamination is switched on. Increase the size of the brush and just remove the green fringing around the edge of the picture of Di. And once we've done that, and by the way, this will retain all the detail in the hair, which is great. This refine brush is fantastic. Sometimes it removes a little bit of the tonal value of the edge of the mask, sometimes, but it does a really nice job. I think that's pretty good. Just say apply. And now we've applied Di back into the layer of the oak tree and the new sky. So we have a complete composition. Now with this picture, what I would do is to take Di into Perfect Effects, make her look cooler because she's supposed to be outside on a frosty day, and the image would be complete. So I want to thank you for listening to this recorded webinar on masking. Hope you managed to get something out of it. I'll be adding a few more over time. I'll talk to you again soon. Cheers.